The quest flagging system in Asheron's Call is used for tracking quest completions and timers, but it can also be used for much more. Let's take a look. The basic emote of the quest system is the stamp. Here we are with our Drudge Skulker, and we can give him a different emote action in response to his scream. And give him stamp quest. Instead of help me, give him quest scream. And for debugging purposes, we will have him say, I stamped you. Remember, this could be $, S pulls the string, the name of the character. So you see, when we go attackable on, he will aggro, and he says, I stamped you, Hertz. The command to check a player or creature's quest stamps is @QST list. Do that. You'll see I have some other quests as well. Right here, we have Scream. So emotes like Stamp Quest are going to target the thing that initiated them. So in this case, since we were the ones that caused the Drudge to aggro and scream, it's going to stamp me. So if there were other players around, it wouldn't have stamped them, it would have just stamped me. Now, there's also an emote that allows us to check for quest stamps. Here we are with a quest checker NPC. And go ahead and on use, ink quest scream. Now it gets a little more complicated here. We have to go to the next line, and tabbed in sort of under this ink quest, we have to do quest success, and then we go down here. Again, note that there's no dash here in front of the quest success. That's very important. We can put a dash here, though, for the emote action. We'll have him say success. Now there's also a failure option, and that is quest failure. Same formatting. We'll have him say failure. So when we go ahead and use this NPC, we'll say success. Now we have another command we can use in our chat window here. It's @QST erase, and then you put the name of the quest, and that's Scream with myself targeted. It erased Scream. Another option we have is @QST erase asterisk. This is going to erase all quests. So you want to be careful with that, but it's useful when you're doing testing. And we can also erase quests with emotes. So we go here, we have our death emote, and do erase quest, scream. And then we can have him say, for debugging purposes, say, I erased your quest. So we go ahead and create a Drudge Skulker. On scream, he stamps me. You can see the list here, quest list. You can see I've got Scream. So go ahead and smite him. I erase your quest. Take a look at the quest list again. And the quest is gone. Now another thing we can do here with our Drudge Skulker is make this initial quest stamp conditional. One reason we might want to do that is if we want an emote to trigger the first time only, but not again on the same player, or to have other conditions. Go ahead and see ink quest scream, quest success. I'll have it say already stamped you. Quest failure. He will then stamp the quest and say I stamped you. So if we create a Drudge Skulker, he's going to scream and stamp us. If we have another Drudge Skulker, he's going to scream, but since he did the inquire request first and we already had it, he's going to give us that failure response. We can stamp on other emotes too, like taunt, stamp quest, taunt. And so when the Drudge starts attacking us, we can do a little check of our quest list. And you'll see taunt. And one interesting thing to note is that each time he's taunting, he's going to be continuing to stamp us. So we've got 8 taunts now, and then 9, and then 10, and so on. Something we can do with our quest logic here is nest multiple inquiries of quests, one into another. So if, say, we had a reward that we were going to give players, we wanted to make sure that they did 2 different quests first before we gave it to them. We could have quest success, ink quest again, and this time we're going to say taunt, and quest success, say success, and we'll give them some pyreals. So we talk to our NPC. He's going to say success. He gives us 1 pyreal. If we talk to him again, he'll continue to do that because we haven't added anything else to our emote. But if we go ahead and we do quest erase all, it's going to say failure. Now, if you remembered when we looked at our quest list, when we were being taunted by that Drudge Skulker, we had a lot of quest solves. It was adding up, racking them up. There's another emote that allows us to inquire not just whether we have a quest or not, but how many solves the player has completed. And so that quest is inc quest solves, and the formatting is a little bit different. Not too different, but a little bit different. Quest solves taunt, and then we can do, let's say at 1 to 10, and then we need to have the lower number of the range, dash, the top number of the range. Same quest success or failure. Quest success. Say you solve between 1 and 10 times. And quest failure. Say, don't know how many times you solve. And so for the fail state here with inc quest solves, it's going to be either anything outside of this range or not having the quest at all. So if we don't have the taunt quest, we'll still get the fail state. If we have 11 solves or 9,000 solves, it'll give us a fail state as well. So since we just erased our quest, if we talk to him, we should get the failure. But if we spawn our Drudge Skulker, it should come over here and start taunting us. There's a taunt. If we talk to him again, between 1 and 10 times, keep talking to him, eventually the Drudge Skulker will get to 11 taunts on our quest list, and he'll give us the fail state again. There we go. All the quests we've been working with so far have no timers or completion limits. I didn't create any extra files to make these quests. I just set them on the fly in the emotes. If I don't want a timer, essentially that's all I need to do. But if I do want a timer, I'm going to need to create a specific file and put it in a specific folder. Here we are in our Ace server content folder. As you can see, there's the land blocks folder, a weenies folder, quests folder. Quest folder is what we're going to be opening up. These are a couple of quest files that I exported from End of Retail. This one right here is Torment Shard Pickup. We open that up and take a look at it. This is the quest timer for the pickup of the Rinthid Tentacle Weapons reward shard. So you see it has the name here, both here and here. It's important that it be the same. The next entry is the time in seconds. So this is 72,000, which is 20 hours, like most End of Retail quests. If we don't want a timer here, don't want a timer on this quest at all, we can leave this as 0. I will leave it what it is for now. The next entry is the solves, the max solves that you can have with a quest. The vast majority of the time, you're just going to leave that at -1. It means players can solve this quest as many times as they like. Often you'll see it set to 1, meaning it's a quest you can only complete once. There's some things you can do with a limit to the number of solves you can have. We're not going to talk about it in this video. It has some pretty marginal uses. Right here is a message. This is not something that players see unless they have Utility Belt. A lot of this stuff is probably familiar to you if you use Utility Belt to track your quests. So let's go ahead and change this timer after all, just to give you a sense of what it looks like. So change this to 10 seconds. So there's another in-game command if we want to import a quest without having to go all the way through the trouble of rebooting our server. We can do import SQL quests, then torment shard pickup. You can see it loaded it up right there. And if we go ahead and create a curator of torment down here on our list, make sure it's imported, give him an old smite, and we loot him. Let's see, we can pick up the shard. Try again. It gives us a timer of 8 seconds left. And we can see here another way of stamping players with quests that does not involve emotes, but rather uses string properties. So if you see here on the shard of the Curator of Torment's Mask, what we just picked up, there's property 3 under the string tab, 33, excuse me, which is quest. So whenever a player tries picking up this shard, they get stamped with the quest. They try picking it up again. It inquires whether they have the quest first automatically, and will spit out that quest timer jargon in the chat window if they are on timer still. This also works when we open up flagged chests like rune chests or chorzite chests. There are also some portals in game where running through them we get flagged for a quest. The Torment Inner Sanctum portal at the bottom of Rinth Tentacle Weapons is just such a portal. It has a quest stamp on it like this. And then the one up top, which is the shortcut portal, uses the next string property we're going to talk about, which is 37. It's quest restriction. This is the sort of thing that you find mostly on portals. Restricts whether you can access it or not by checking to see if you have the quest. And here we get to the really fun part. Not only can players be stamped with quests, but creatures can too, and there's a whole set of emotes that are just the same as the ones we've looked at, but for creatures to check their own quests. So here we go, just stamp my quest, and then ink my quest, and ink my quest solves, erased my quest, all the way on down the line. So I wanted to show you some of the more complicated things we can do with monsters stamping themselves and inquiring their own quests and so on. Maybe a little intimidating to you at first. I've simplified it a bit from what it was so that it's a bit more intelligible. It's based off of the heartbeat emote, which we haven't talked about yet, and I'd like to talk about it now. If you look here in the float properties, the first one right there is the heartbeat interval. Most monsters have that, so you really can't miss it. Basically, it's like the regeneration interval on a generator in the sense that it's a cycle. It's a heartbeat that he continually has every second. In this case, we can set it to 10 seconds. He has a heartbeat every 10 seconds. We can set it to whatever we like. In this case, it's 1 second, so that it's easier to understand because this is an NPC that I'm using as sort of a stopwatch, as a timer. So we go here, we can take a look at what this is. Basically, on heartbeat, which is every 1 second, he's going to have this heartbeat emote fire off. He's going to inquire his own quest, ink my quest, unlock heartbeat. So he starts off without this quest at all, so on heartbeat he's not going to do anything. He's not going to get past this point. He's going to not reach the quest success condition, and there's no quest failure condition. There doesn't need to be necessarily, until he receives this local signal, spider start. Can be anything you like. He's going to stamp his quest, unlock heartbeat, and that essentially starts the countdown. Because then, once he has this heartbeat emote unlocked by using this quest stamp, he's going to stamp his quest, another quest, a different quest, the countdown quest, and then immediately after, inquire how many times he solved that quest countdown. And so when he reaches 90, which is 90 seconds, he's going to reach his success condition, erase both of those quests, countdown and unlock heartbeat, so that he resets his timer, and sends a broadcast that you failed the countdown. Obviously, there's a lot more that you can do here. As I said, I pared this down a bit to make it more intelligible, but this is just sort of one basic thing that you can do. An interesting note about heartbeats is that they don't, for whatever reason, work on monsters when they've gone into combat. I don't know quite why that is. I've never been able to figure out a way to get them to do it while in combat. So you're generally going to want to use heartbeats only on NPCs, things that aren't going to be entering combat at all ever, for the sake of reliability. Another thing I wanted to take a look at in our previous video on activation, but that I forgot about, and is sort of related to quests, are ways in which you can use pressure plates with the 2048 activation response, which is emotes. So basically, instead of having a pressure plate just serve as an activation for a door or for a magic trap, with parent-child linking, we can have the pressure plate itself do some interesting emotes. In this case, what we do is we have it inquire quests, and in the case of quest failure, it'll stamp quests, send a local signal, and do a little local broadcast. So we go ahead and walk over our pressure plate. It'll do its little debugging local broadcast, and it will stamp our player. And if we go over it again, and again, and again, and again, it's going to keep inquiring for this quest, and since we already have it, it's not going to do that again. One thing to note, another thing that I've continually mentioned, I think, without actually really showing you, is that since I have admin vision on, this pressure plate is visible, but it normally wouldn't be. Let's go take a look at the bool. This right here, visibility true, is the reason that pressure plates and generators very often are invisible to players, and only visible to admin players when they turn their admin vision on. So this is a valuable property to know and understand. And the reason that I brought us here is that on activation, this guy did a little local broadcast, as you saw. It says plus plate. Since he has Boolean 18 true visibility, he's invisible to anybody who's not an administrator character with admin vision on. And interestingly, only those characters, only administrator characters with admin vision on will hear this local broadcast. So you can add sort of debugging broadcasts to your invisible items, things that have this bool 18 true visibility, and players won't hear them. So one last thing I want to talk about were fellow quests. They don't show up in your quest list, so they're a little bit more difficult to play around with, but you can stamp fellow quests with a stamp fellow quest emote. You can also ink fellow quests, which we see here. Timers do apply if you make a quest SQL and add it to that content folder under quests. You can add timed fellow quests. You don't have to do anything specific to the file to make it a fellow quest. You just make a regular old quest file with a timer on it and use it as a stamped fellow quest. But there is a couple of notes here. If you're going to be stamping fellow quests and locking fellows, which is another emote, if you do just lock fellow. That's how, if you've ever wondered how monsters at Coliseum and Society Gauntlet lock your fellow, that's how. But obviously, if you're not in a fellow, the stamp fellow quest and the lock fellow won't do anything. And so very often, NPCs that stamp fellows and lock fellows are going to inquire whether you're even in a fellow to begin with. And there's a special way to do that. And I kind of wanted to end the video on this last note. You do ink fellow quest is player in fellow question mark. Quest failure means that they are in a fellow. And I'll delete all this so you don't have to see it. And the true failure state is quest no fellow. It says you cannot enter the Coliseum unless you create a fellowship, and that gives you the ticket back. So sort of niche. You won't generally need to know that, but it's good if you're going to be stamping and locking fellows at some point to know that there's a special way you have to check for a fellowship. And there it is. So really just scratching the surface, what you can do with quest stamps. It's much more than just keeping track of reward timers, although that's most of what it's used for in End of Retail. But yeah, lots of things you can do. You can play around with it yourself, and hopefully you found this video helpful.